And the Metro Vancouver Transit Police and the Police Board respects the Indigenous Nation of Vancouver and acknowledges all First Nation, Inuit, and Métis people for their continued resilience, sustainable stewardship, and as active members of the community for generations to come. We recognize that working within and managing the region's transportation system, we do have a role to play in supporting reconciliation with Indigenous peoples. Welcome everyone. I did also just want to acknowledge that this is the last board meeting before Chief Jones' retirement, so I did want to put on the record say thank you to Chief Jones. We've all enjoyed working with him. We're going to miss him, and we look forward to celebrating his retirement soon. All right. First item, consent agenda. So, does anyone need to pull any consent? Okay, so we need to pull that. Okay. Anybody need to pull anything else? No? All right. Okay. So, can I get a motion to accept the consent agenda? Great. All in favor? Awesome. Next, public delegations. Is there any of those here? Public delegations. Already ahead of schedule. Chief Officer Information Report. Acting Chief.
Good morning, everyone, and I'll turn it over for the updates today, and we'll begin in operations with Inspector Deb Skeeter.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Thanks for the invite. I just want to provide a quick update. This week I had an opportunity to attend a conference in Edmonton hosted by the Edmonton Police Services, which focused on safety of our cities. It was actually a great conference. It lasted 3 days. So, the purpose of the safety of our cities conference was an opportunity for members of the public safety community partners and stakeholders to come together and share insights, experience, and expertise on solutions for the complex problems facing our cities today. It was clear when I got there that we're all facing the same issues, in North America. So, gangs, guns, violence, mental health, and homelessness. So I had an opportunity to sit on a panel to discuss transit safety and security. As the only transit police in Canada, it was actually a great opportunity. I look at what others do, for example, Edmonton Police and Toronto Police. And my opinion is that the perception of safety of transit in BC is really high compared to other cities. So I think it was a great insight. Great discussion, lasted only for an hour. I wish it would have lasted longer. As we're the only dedicated transit police in Canada. I've invited Edmonton Police and Toronto Police to come out and visit and see how we do things. So hopefully they'll take that invitation and come visit. So just a quick update on patrol section. So we had 4 new recruits started their Block 2 as 4 recruits returned to a JIBC to finish their Block 2 training. And we also have 4 new contracts started, which is great. So we're always happy when we get new hires. Sergeant Del Viol has raised over $29,000 for the Cops for Cancer Run, which is so impressive. It's just unbelievable. It's essential funds, towards cancer research and provide support for children and their families. So he's likely set a record for transit police. I'm pretty sure he has in terms of money raised, and he's one of the top fundraisers for that tournament this year. Next update I want to provide is on some of the initiatives and projects, which includes FIFA World Cup 2026, which I'm happy to be involved in. So Transit Police is actively engaged with the City of Vancouver, Vancouver Police Department, RCMP, and FIFA planning officials in their preparation for the World Cup in 2026. We're also working very closely with TransLink to make sure the planning is ongoing. As one of the North American host cities, Metro Vancouver can anticipate greater volume of passengers on their transit system during their tournament. So something similar to what we saw in 2010 during the Olympics. So we're also looking at what we did in 2010, so to prepare us for 2026. So a lot of insights that we did back then for scheduling, and forecasting, and for extra resources required. Some of the other projects I just want to highlight here. In late July, Transit Police Patrol Officers engaged in joint patrols with Transit Security, which which we work closely with, at a major bus exchange in North Vancouver, ensuring a visible presence in and around traffic areas. Another one is 2 members of the Transit Police Patrol developed a project focusing on the area around Surrey Central SkyTrain Station. Officers worked with the Surrey RCMP Crime Suppression Team, the Transit Police Crime Suppression Team, and additional Transit Police Patrol officers over 2 days in August. The final results included 13 drug-related charges and 4 charges of assault recommended, 5 weapons and various drugs, various amounts recovered, and approximately $3,000 of money seized. So great project, which was led by 2 young patrol officers. It's nice to see. Some files of note in naloxone. We continue to administer multiple naloxones per month. So Transit Police received a report from a SkyTrain attendant, so an STA, advised of an unconscious and potential overdose of person on board and train at 22nd Street, so this 22nd station in Westminster. We attended and administered 1 dose of naloxone. An airsoft pistol was also located in the person's waistband while administering naloxone. The Westminster Police Fire attended shortly after and took over medical aid. The person regained consciousness and was taken to the hospital. Priority 1 train hold. So Priority 1 train hold is if we need the trains to be held at a certain station, we reach out to our operation maintenance control over at the SkyTrain and request a Priority 1 train hold. That means that the train is held in station. The STA started inside the station and leaves the station because it's usually safety-related concerns. So we have a good system in place for that. This was a Priority 1 train hold and mental health apprehension. An individual texted Transit Police stating they were on a SkyTrain platform and was going through a mental health crisis. Officers responded, located the client, at the same time observing multiple knives in their possession. Priority 1 hold was placed on the train and officers negotiated with the person who relinquished the knives and was subsequently apprehended under the Mental Health Act and taken to the hospital and certified. Just want to highlight some of the naloxone deployments we had in this reporting period, which were 20. Overall, I just want to say last year we had approximately all year about 52, and this year we're already at over 60. So we're seeing definitely an increase in naloxone deployments. Mental health apprehensions for this reporting period were 42. At this point in time, I would like to hand it over to Stephen.
Hi there. Right. So in regards to investigation, first I'll start with the General Investigation Unit. Just one of the highlighted files, on June 21st, Vancouver Transit Police responded to 911 at the Surrey Central SkyTrain Station adjacent to, in relation to an unprovoked attack on 3 males by 3 suspects, 1 person being stabbed in the chest, 1 in the back, and the other person being in the head with a speaker that was on the street and subsequently bears for the face. Suspects initially departed the scene in a cab. After patrol officers had locked the scene down, the General Investigation Unit took over the investigation. They were able to identify 3 suspects. They subsequently arrested all 3. In relation to the 3rd suspect, along with our crime suppression team, they executed a search warrant, which located some firearms as well as 40 ounces of methamphetamine. So it's a good file. I mean, as you know, in the spring we had several of these types of incidents, so they're doing very good. We're doing some excellent work in connecting them. Just another follow-up that they're looking at, just in relation to a file from the board was updated last July. That was in relation to the Motor Vehicle Act, the double fatal. They've worked long and hard last year on the investigation. We've had enough evidence to support charges of criminal negligence causing death. Took a year almost with the disclosure process. But I'm happy to report as of July 5th, Regional Crown in Vancouver has improved charges of criminal negligence causing death times 2 is when failing to stop for police while being pursued. So we say it's a long, hard, great effort in tragic circumstances. Excellent work. next team I'm going to update on is our crime suppression team. So our crime suppression team in August, they did a joint boost and bust project in Surrey. They worked with Surrey RCMP North Crime Unit, the Delta Police, at the Surrey Central Mall, which is adjacent to Surrey Central Bus Loop and the SkyTrain station here. They also enlisted loss prevention officers and store security from that mall. It was a very successful project. There was 18 arrests, 13 criminal charges were recommended, as well as approximately $1,000 worth of property was recovered. Early September, crime suppression team along with the Lower Mainland emergency response team and our general investigation unit executed a search warrant on a trailer in Surrey in relation to ongoing file. As part of that execution of the search warrant, we deployed our K9 section to do a sweep for explosives and firearms. Subsequent search of the trailer resulted in a loaded shotgun with 5 rounds, which was found on a shelf adjacent to the door, as well as dozens of shotgun shells and some methamphetamine. So it was a great effort by all. Next section I'm going to give an update on is our criminal intelligence unit. Our criminal intelligence unit has worked in conjunction with not only our internal units, but also the external police agencies in identifying suspects. So since the last reporting period, we've been successful in identifying another 33 suspects. Good work to them. As well, they work in collaboration with other police agencies to share intelligence. As part of this intelligence sharing, they attend numerous meetings, including Vancouver Police Department Youth, Integrated Youth at Risk, the Public Order Enforcement meeting, the organized crime gang calls, and then CFSU uniform meetings. Another thing that's relatively new that I've actually been going along with Sergeant Broomfield from the Criminal Intelligence Unit is a provincial initiative called the Repeat Violent Offender Intervention Initiative. It's run by Community Corrections and Probation. The police also sit on those, and so identifying repeat violent offenders and prioritize them, and sort of take a holistic approach. One, to try and help them get the resources they need, whether it's mental health, housing, or any kinds of support, as well as to protect the public. So being an agency that is over 22 different municipalities, we unfortunately have 3 hubs there. So there's a Vancouver hub, there's a Surrey hub, and a New Westminster hub. So I go to the Surrey hub and the New Westminster hub, where Sergeant Broomfield, he goes to the Vancouver hub. And the second part of this, which some of what Inspector Hubers has alluded to, is there's a second part of it. It's called funding from the provincial government. They call it site funding, strategic initiative targeted enforcement, where the police are given an opportunity to apply, put projects forth to target some of these violent offenders. So we've had some good additions already. In relation to the criminal intelligence unit, they're also obviously outside of these meetings. They're working in conjunction with their units, crime suppression team, or general investigation unit, or some of these patrol projects. So our analysts are working, helping them get all the intelligence to put these projects forth and then submit them to the Revoy provincial hope for some funding, and we've been successful with that. Lastly, do an update on the professional standards unit. So the professional standards unit, later in October, we're going to be hosting on behalf of the Office of the Police Complaints Commission basically we're going to do a workshop on complaint resolution. It's basically, the focus is going to be on how police agencies can use mediation to settle police act disputes that are less serious and have less complex issues. So we give an opportunity for the police agencies, along to work with the OPCC, just to learn from each other, and hopefully we can make smoother resolution process under Division 4 Police Act. Workshop will include presentations from police agencies, the Office of the Police Complaint Commission, as well as some community organizations and its mediation. I'll pass it on to Deputy Chief Personnel.
Good morning, everyone. I'll just touch on updates in relation to the operational support section. So I'll start off with our community engagement team. Recent recruitment efforts have welcomed 11 new volunteers into the Waterfront Community Police Center program, bringing the total number of volunteers to 62, and additional applicants are currently in the approval process. The Blue Eagle Community Cadets program has recently begun its fall programming to coincide with the start of the new school year, with the Vancouver program running out of Britannia Community Center and the Surrey program running out of AHP Matthews Secondary. Attendance at recent events such as the Slow Powwow has allowed proactive outreach and promotion of the program. And I'm sure you all saw on Twitter their new truck. We're quite happy to have acquired that, and it looks great. So it's good for the program and well-deserved piece of kit for them. With respect to the K9 unit, in August, the unit traveled to Seattle, Washington, where they trained with the ATF and received certification from the agency, having imprinted on multiple homemade explosive substances. This transit police explosive dog service is the only explosive K9 unit in Canada to have ATF service certification, so something we can be proud of, and no doubt as we move towards FIFA and events such as that, the dog unit will no doubt be utilized to its fullest extent. And a couple of weeks ago, two of our handlers, Constable Duke Shalito and Lisa McKay, attended the Canadian Police Dog Championships in Ontario, placing second and fourth respectively. So good work on their part. Touching on the Community Safety Officer Program, the first class to recruit CSOs completed their in-class training on the 8th of this month, and have now been assigned to work with patrol officers to complete the next phase of field training. They're set to graduate November 2nd of this year and be fully deployed thereafter. With respect to the Operations Communication Center, all in-house call taker dispatcher training program and all in-house call taker dispatcher training program has been developed and will begin on October 2nd, running for 24 weeks. At the conclusion of the training, candidates will be better trained as all as OCC call takers, information operators, and police dispatchers. And lastly, with respect to TMET, they played a key role in the training of the CSO recruits, covering all course materials related to enforcement on the transit system, both in class and out on the field. In September, they're sponsoring a 3-day commercial vehicle safety training program by supplying the trainers and coordinators representation from multiple police agencies. They continue to work alongside many of our jurisdictional partners on joint force operations, targeting bus lane enforcement, distracted driving, and speed enforcement related to TransLink bridges. There have been a total of 15 joint project activities recorded during the current report between July and September this year. And they're coordinating a series of counterattack road checks, working alongside West Vancouver Police and Port Louis Police. This was the first in terms of overtime funding to the transit police from ICBC. The outcomes of these checks are proving to be excellent and getting impaired drivers to come off the road. On that note, if there's no questions, I'll turn it over to Inspector Bryce Graham on the admin side of the house.
Good morning, everybody. I'll touch base just on a couple of key points for facilities. Currently, we're in a renovation at our Waterfront Hub office. We expect that renovation to be done by the end of this month. That's the office that we run a volunteer program out of, so we kind of rejig that office in order to make a unique space for them and then update it with lighting and an HVAC system. When it comes to recruiting, in this time period since we met last, we've hired 5 recruits, which are currently at the JI. We've also hired 4 experienced members. We've attended 16 different community events, and we've also held 5 information sessions within house. So recruiting team's been quite busy in the last couple of months. For training, currently we're in our last quarter. We're we refer to as a mandatory training day 3, and for us that's going to be trauma-informed practice. That'll put us in line with police services for 2024. And I'll pass it back over to the chief.
Thanks everyone, and just really want to highlight the work that's being done, not just by our frontline members, but certainly our civilian professionals and all the specialty teams that support them. I think in the report you see that we have a lot of control-based projects that have been initiated that have nexus to the system. And in addition, a lot of complex investigations as well that have led to significant charges in relation to them. The other thing I'd like to highlight is, as Inspector Hoover has indicated, we continue to attend different conferences to learn, but we also bring other agencies to share our expertise and our unique knowledge in relation to safety on the transit system. And with that, we will move to the next one. Any questions?
All the information is great information. One thing that, from my perspective, may be helpful, especially in the context of an environment where the public isn't necessarily feeling as safe as they used to feel on the transit system, is talking a bit more about, I guess, police officers on the trains and buses, security staff on the trains and buses, and I think it may be helpful in future reports to provide a bit of a context around sort of just physical presence of policemen and security staff demonstrating that we're actually watching people who are watching all the time.
Yeah, no thanks, and perhaps Inspector Hoover, I know he did have a specific project that was based in relation to buses specifically. So there's lots of different projects, and we'll certainly look to outline them in subsequent reports to share that in more detail format.
Because I know traditionally, and that people sometimes wonder where the policemen are. And I think it's two things that come to my mind. One is that the resources that we have available to us are, it's not like we can have a lot on every train car or every bus, but at least talking about it so people know that we're actively thinking about how to deploy the resources we do have in a way that best represents the crime hotspots or the safety hotspots that we are aware of through our analytics.
Okay, thank you all for great presentations. I appreciate the detail. I guess this would maybe go to next. I'm interested in the media and as a active transit user myself, I've noticed there's a lot more people on the buses and the SkyTrains, and I heard a report in the media recently that transit using some beyond what we were at pre-pandemic levels. So we're seeing that increase. I'm just wondering how that's impacted operations and a change in strategy. Maybe related to what I was talking about, but just in terms of how we're managing those additional folks on the trains and on the buses, is it changing?
Yeah, so in terms of, we looked at that in terms of ridership and the locations on which we are seeing the highest kind of passenger, levels and loads, and then we will allocate within operations where we deploy those resources to the best of our ability based on other call priorities that are occurring.
Because I think we're seeing about 1 million passengers on the system daily.
Yeah.
Some areas, it's higher than pre-pandemic, so like 120%.
Something like that. So
And some others are like at 90%, so
Yeah.
overall the ridership has increased, which is great to see. So
yeah.
and I don't know the stats here, so
Yeah, no, I just wondered if it was impacting how operations run and having obviously those hotspots, but
we're definitely like sometimes the local services are increasing and
Yeah.
other days they're not, so it's just depends what we're on the system every day. So.
yeah.
And that's something we're currently exploring is just being data driven and being proactive in the data we receive as well in terms of where we deploy and how we utilize resources with the understanding, to your point, that they are limited in terms of what is available.
Sorry, that's question.
Great. So this is not pick on note day today. But my question is related to the mental health apprehensions. And you've certainly seen on the recent media about mental illness and mental health apprehensions. And you actually see this overriding theme of the last 12 to 24 months. I know you reported 42, but it's interesting to hear from you what the trend line is, whether it's on the rise like other jurisdiction, and if it is on the rise, how do we try to continue to protect the public, protect your staff, and also try to get ahead of the curve, because it looks like I'm not sure whether it's heading in the right direction or not, and it would be nice to see some trend lines if possible.
The mental health apprehensions, I don't think they're on the rise right now, but I can tell you that on the average, about 80% of the individuals that we apprehend in the Mental Health Act are certified. So they're taken to the hospital and receive the required medical care. Then we have our mental health liaison officer who gets involved quite early. So if there's clients that require help, he's out there. He actually goes out and replaces the members that are at the hospital waiting for the doctor to certify or see the patient. So it's really being proactive on that and identifying and providing information to our staff that, if this client needs this type of assistance, or, here's a new client and I'm trying to get the proper resources in place there to support that client.
We do have the Section 20 mental health apprehension stats in the staff plan report, so I'll write that off. Okay, perfect. I agree with Bill that is one area that's you can deal with physical crimes, but sometimes mental health issues have ramifications that aren't really criminal in nature, but they're very disturbing in nature. And I think that's where having the right resources available to deal with the mental health issues, not from an enforcement perspective, but from an assistance perspective, is very helpful.
Yeah, those efforts continue to work in partnership, with health, because, it is a health, issue, and trying to divert people into and being able to obtain the proper resources continues to be a focus.
Yeah, maybe if I can just follow up, like there's quite a criteria for individuals that need to fit under the mental health act, but there's a lot of people that don't quite meet that criteria, and yet they still create quite a public disturbance. And I think that's the one that's bringing issues. I think, but I don't know, so that's why I just raised the question, because you guys are there.
Yeah, we can take that away and look to analyze it a little bit further and be able to provide further detail.
Questions? So, within part of the RCP, we're launching with mental health conditions and health administration with regards to mental health, integrated crisis response teams. So we have 5 new locations with our nurses. So it's going to be launched very quickly. So we've done it all. And then has any of those ministries reached out to Yes Police, because you guys are absolutely everywhere, and obviously we discuss that with them as a possibility to have one, and I've seen our team with one police officer and one person shot together and just to have dedicated resources and just do a routine together. So I don't know if you have that, but I sit on the executive committee. So maybe I should touch with that if you don't have one. I don't think we don't have one, but if we have, we can get an opportunity to discuss
police, they can either de-escalate or they can escalate the situation, depending on who we're dealing with. And then, with regards to Health Diane as well, that's really funded by mental health is paid for that. So we're looking at building that as well, and that will certainly help. I think that's, better than we're assessing people's mental health, conditions, whether or not they should go to, hospital or they do not.
Yeah, no, I think we welcome that connection, so thank you for that opportunity. And we are in conversations about looking to have that funding secured to be able to have a mental health nurse in support, so hopefully that will be something achieved. The other consideration is around our operational command center, and is there an opportunity to do some type of pilot to have presence within as well that is able to provide and put things into a different stream rather than police response and have it dealt with the mental health professionals.
So, in Saskatchewan, I'll say, one kind of base camp, was open and recreated at, in our operational communication center. It's years to get done. We have a mental health, nurse in that room for our OCC, and it's, because some of the detachments here, we have the health center and, members are not trained in, just the inner workings of mental health is really helped out. So that really is a cornerstone for us in our organization. So if you're looking for any point of contact, they will provide us with Ms. George. Certainly look in that way, consider it in touch, but it's like with all the stats and that too. So
Thank you.
All right, who's the next agenda item, which is Stephen, strong plan update.
Okay, so this is the strat plan report for the first 6 months of the year. So it's like the mid-year report. There will be a full report going into a little bit more detail on some of these areas early in 2024. But I'm going to highlight a few of the KPIs and just trends that we're monitoring at the moment that were highlighted within the executive summary. So first of all, the rate of crimes, both against property and persons, are down substantially. A lot of that is continues to be driven by the increase in ridership. So we are continuing to see that significant increase in ridership as we're still in the years coming out of COVID. So a lot of that changeover is just due to more people being on the system. But of note, when you actually look at volumes, crimes against persons was down by 4%, crimes against property was down by 18%. So we did check with our GPD partners just to see if that was consistent with what they were seeing. Many of them were seeing similar decreases, but generally around kind of the 4 to 8% range. So that 18% crimes against property, we are looking a little bit further into that. That is a more substantial decrease than you probably expect. So expect a little bit more on that for the year-end report. Mental health apprehensions, as was mentioned by Bill, we did see a spike in the first 2 quarters of 2022. And if you'll recall, the very first strat plan report said we were closely monitoring that increase in apprehensions. Since then, it's come down to levels you would have seen previously. So not entirely sure what resulted in that kind of temporary 6-month increase, but at the moment, what we are seeing in terms of apprehensions is similar volumes to what we've seen historically. Rates of turnover amongst police officers, that was the one item, if you recall, last year's report that was in red because there was a substantial increase over prior years. That was anticipated by the board and the management team given the inception of Surrey Police Service. We have seen a decrease in the first 6 months of this year, but that may be somewhat temporary given that the indecision about the Surrey Police Service in the first 6 months. Now that a decision has been rendered, we're just kind of monitoring that to see whether or not that turnover begins to increase once again. Because we know there is a vacancy rate across all police departments. We're aware of that, and obviously there's increased competition for recruits and experienced officers. On-view incidents, I have that as in yellow. So these are files where either the officers on scene and witnesses the event take place, or they're immediately on scene once the call is received. So they're all at that station. So not a really substantial changeover, but you do see the reduction from 16% to 14%. So that is one area where we are doing a little bit more analysis just to kind of dive down into what might be the cause of that changeover. If it's the fact we're responding more to buses, so there's a little bit longer lead time in terms of responding to those incidents, what that might be the cause of that. But that is one area we'll be looking further into for the year-end report. And then lastly, in terms of KPIs, you'll see lower perceptions of safety. It dropped from about 4%. We were anticipating that. A lot of that has to do with obviously the 2 weeks where we saw that kind of cluster of incidents in early April. So although we've actually seen a reduction in crimes against person, that 2 week period where we had a number of very substantial assault files, working very, very closely with our JPD partners, which was well covered by the media. We were anticipating with our transit research team that we would see a bit of a softening of perceptions of safety across all modes of transit, and I think that's what's coming through here. With more high visibility deployments that are occurring with partners, we're hoping obviously to see that come back up a bit in the coming months. In terms of the qualitative information that follows, I mean, there's a lot of projects and initiatives that are encapsulated here. Just a few points I'll make, or 3 points I'll make on them. On pillar number 1, a lot of the joint JPD deployments in Q2 would have been the high visibility deployments we were making at major transit hubs. We had partners such as Burnaby RCMP and Surrey RCMP were very, very proactive in terms of putting up media releases and almost daily social media showing those joint patrols at MetroCam, Surrey Central. And a lot of that was just driven by passenger reassurance. Because we had that cluster of incidents, we wanted to be highly, highly visible. So we were taking members of our community engagement team, we were taking members of the target mobile enforcement team, a lot of our specialty teams, putting them in high visibility uniforms and putting them out of those key locations for that passenger reassurance. So a lot of that joint JPD numbers you see in Q2 would be those kind of joint patrols versus being more actually project driven. Similar to that, when we're looking at a lot of the outreach occurring, a lot of that was at transit stations, so our community engagement team wasn't spending as much time, for instance, in schools in Q2, they were spending a lot more time on the transit system. Related to strategic pillar number 2, so engage community partners, just referencing, I mentioned in our last meeting a lot of support coming from transit in terms of marketing and communication materials. That is ongoing, we're having regular meetings with the transit marketing team. In fact, at the moment, they're in the process of installing, I believe it's just over 12,000 decals. So every second window on every bus across the entire fleet is having those permanent tech service decals installed. So there's a variety of components to that campaign that's continually expanding. The next component of the expansion is that permanent deckling. And then we're able to complement that permanent deckling with seasonal advertisements, such as I presented at the last meeting. And then finally, under modern policing culture, one of the areas that we've finally have some statistics on, that we were waiting on the employee morale survey for the first year, is equity, diversity, and inclusion. So we had a lot of equity, diversity, and inclusion. Same questions, TransLink, SkyTrain, and Ghostman Bus that previously asked of their staff. But because we embedded those questions into our employee morale survey, which we know has a very, very high uptake, we had over 60% of staff give us the statistics. That's a very, very high level of participation to do benchmarking in terms of self-identified diversity stats as well as inclusion stats. And while there's some initial statistics at a high level within the report, we'll be doing more of a comprehensive breakdown in the year-end report to follow. I think I will leave it at that. See what questions we may have.
Thank you. Appreciate the update. Just first off, I want to say, like, the way you presented the KPI stats is better. So it's an ever-evolving process, and it's helpful. So the first ones I'm going to point to were, 1A, 1, 1B, 2, 2B. That's super helpful because in the past you guys were just showing rates for 100,000, which is interesting because it's kind of a derivative rate how crimes are only presented by POJs because they're going on population when you use ridership, which makes sense.
Right.
So that's totally good. But now you're including the total number, which you have to have. So that's great because before the public or the board wouldn't know, like, are you getting 100 calls or 100,000 calls? Like, we have no idea. So it's helpful to have the raw numbers in there as well. But along that same, and it's interesting too when you look at the percentage differences, and it shows you how, look at our criminologist over here, how you present crime data, because if you're going by rate or absolute numbers, like look at the difference in these percentages, like they're shocking, but the difference is right.
Well, small numbers, percent
100%.
changes massively, right? So it's very deceiving, but I like the raw numbers myself, and I like the capital, for ridership rates.
Yeah. It's good for context on both.
Yeah.
But along that same line, what I was gonna say is when you've got, you got a few kind of disparate things the way they're spread out. So like, let's take number 5, percentage of files that are on view. So it's a percentage to a percentage and then a difference in the percentage, but we don't know what those numbers are. But then when you go to number 11, these files generated from text, then you go to a hard number as opposed to a percentage. So they're presented differently. What I would suggest on calls for service is that you've got, think of a pie chart and you've got your total calls for service. You're gonna have some generated by the public, some that are on view, some from the text service that you guys offer, which is unique, and then maybe some from JPDs, whatever it is, but you're gonna have those buckets.
Yeah.
It's gonna add up to 100%. So it'd be helpful to say, total calls for service, here's the different buckets, absolute numbers, here's the percentage change.
Right. And yeah, when
And
you
put the
go
whole
to
together like bang, 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 bang.
when you go to the qualitative information, we've started inserting some of the charts. So that I think now will be a chart will have the year end and a pie chart. We do have that here.
Okay, perfect. That's great. The other thing I'll just throw out is 9A and 9B, and it kind of goes to Bill's comments when we're talking about mental health. So yeah, section 28s, they're down, which is good, and I think you're going to see across the region they're either down slightly or maintaining a fairly consistent level. We're not seeing a huge spike in 28 apprehensions regionally that I'm aware of. Number referred to mental health, which is good. Referrals to social services providers is good. The other thing you may want to consider is that there are templates up there now where you can get a handle on, and I think this goes to what you're saying, Bill, like total percentage of your call load that's mental health related. Like in my own shop, my day job, for example, like we know it's 16.8% of our call load is mental health related. We've tracked that over time and seen that come down quite a bit because of different programs that are implemented. But you can get a handle on, regardless of the type of call, whether it's an armed robbery or it's somebody sleeping in a bus station. No matter what type of call it is, we get a sense where mental health is a factor in that type of call. So that might be one just to explore, and that's one way where probably how to try and shop with somebody who has methodology. So a few things to consider. But overall, the report, I really like it. And I think it is revolving. Like all of us, we're evolving these reports all the time. And it's better than it was before. So it's getting to a good place.
Well, that's good. I appreciate that. Ideally, with a 5-year plan, so you have 10 reports.
Yeah.
You see that steady evolution and improvement.
Right.
That's what we're aiming for. Those 10 consecutive reports.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you. All right. Thank you. Good report.
The one thing that kind of crossed my mind when I was reading the report is that sometimes it's very few individuals that generate a lot of calls for service, and sometimes one individual can generate 40% of the calls for service from an area. And I think it may be helpful, and I'm just thinking about it may be helpful to sort of talk about worst case, one person being kind of the generator of any calls for service, police to attend a scene. And then maybe talk a bit about how can we manage that 1 or 2 or 3 people that are really generating a lot of calls for service because they're not all with us. And try to get them the services they need so that they're not up there on the street getting picked up in the morning and getting picked up in the afternoon and getting picked up again in the evening. And that revolving door problem generates a lot of work, but not very good effect. So it would be an interesting conversation to have around if we were to take the 10 worst quotes offenders out of the system, how much of the total workload is represented by these KPIs would be eliminated, and how do we do that? And so I'm not suggesting that there's a specific simple solution to that, but I think it's an important conversation.
Yeah, I think obviously we want to depersonalize that data as much as possible. I think along those lines, one proactive and positive example we could potentially provide as a breakout is just the number of calls for service that may have been related to those that the mental health liaisons deal with. And a reduction because you
see that number 15, referrals related to mental health. 15 seems like a relatively small number until you consider the sheer volume of files each of those individuals may have been generated. Now, it's not criminal files, a lot of it's disorder files. Those individuals who receive really a lot of the time medical assistance and transportation for the care of a physician. So actually showcasing that proactive work with the mental health liaison in terms of taking them, getting them a mental health team, getting them the support they need so we're not getting that weekly call for service out of the system. I think that's something we probably want to draw attention to as well.
Well, I know when I was working in Surrey that there was one person in Surrey that generated, and I'm going by memory, like 1,750 calls for service in a year. And so it wasn't incidental, it was like the equivalent of 2 or 3 members' time to a whole year generated by this one person. And so that's the thing that comes to mind when I look at these statistics, saying, is there a way of driving down the number of calls by dealing more proactively with that, that 5% of the population of the calls that are being generated to eliminate or at least reduce the number of calls they generate. So I raise it more as a point for discussion. Maybe, as a part of a future meeting, we can do a strategy session on digital. What can we do in that regard?
Yeah, if I could just comment on that for you as well. We have a process in place, so if we have repeat offenders or repeat clients that suffer mental health crisis, we have a process in place where we refer them to our mental health liaison officer to provide them those individuals the assistance they need to reduce those calls for service in the future. So we're very proactive with that already.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I mean, I would assume that's the case. And my comments aren't directly to suggest that we're doing anything wrong. But whether there's other things that we need to engage with to assist the police service in minimizing the number of calls for service generated by people that are more not offenders, just sort of chronic disturbers or something like that that I described. And I appreciate the fact that we're sort of a shady area between boundaries between police and mental health, corrections, probation, and other organizations that are attempting to manage people in a way that allows them to blend with society properly. And that's really the problem. And as Suzanne mentioned earlier, this issue, the recommendations coming out of the session committee recognize that the police agencies across BC tend to sort of be the horse of last resort, but often the horse that ends up dealing with all the issues that other agencies that aren't on duty 24/7 miss because of the nature of their working hours.
Yeah, we continue, it has been kind of stated to analyze and look at who are the clients that we're having the most interactions with. And then, beyond just looking at that, working with other JPDs who have specialized mental health units, as well as across with the different health authority areas to really, again, try to put people back, into the healthcare stream and get them the support. So it is something we continually look at, and then, adjust based on the clients that we're having the most interactions with.
Yeah, thank you. I like the report. I really like the insights that you added on the commentary on this, and I also think it's important that we, as a board, we do discuss it. And this is our strategic plan. So overall, I like the report, and I just want something for you to think about. On your KPIs, you measure it based on what happened the last quarter. You may want to consider if it's possible to measure against the KPIs on your strategic plan, so you know where you're heading versus where you are. That's something to thank you.
More like kind of a long-term, like trend line, so.
Yeah, well, I'm just looking at that. I've seen your strategic plan, and you would hopefully have some KPIs on your strategic plan, and how does that compare to where we are today?
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Steve. Alright, moving on to other business. First item on the is report
finance committee on July 27th, largely in camera, so I'll deal with that in camera. But the Q2 results were addressed on September 5th. It was either the 5th or the 6th. And the Q2 results show there's still a favorable variance in budget year to date. Not as favorable as the Q1 results suggested. It's largely related to the higher than deployment of the CSOs. So the budget anticipated CSOs being hired earlier than they were, and more of them than there were. And so there's $132,000 projected variance year in the budget and the actuals in favor. So that's good. And there were a number of expenditures that were slightly over, slightly under. Things like a consultant was hired to undertake a review of the call center, and that cost them $80,000. So that was one of the items that wasn't budgeted for, but was deemed to be necessary based on concerns around how the call center is operating. And programming is out of that like training that I think the second mentioned earlier that will create more efficiencies. But overall, it appears that based on projections that we will remain positive budget to the end of the year. And we're operating at full strength, and the recruiting section has done a great job of recruiting to keep us at full strength and is continuing to recruit the final 14 CSOs that have budgeted for in 2023. And hopefully we'll have the 10 that are in training right now, complete the training and be deployed by year, and the 14 that still to be recruited and trained will be fully trained by the year 2024. So the whole 24 teaching CSOs will be up and running by hopefully the end of the year 2024. That's what the group was officially ends.
Great, any questions for Marie? Great. Next up is the governance committee. Marie, can you speak to that? Given that Director Madison today.
Yeah, I'll do my best. So the governance committee met on September the 7th, and the minutes of the agenda package. I'll quickly go through some of the things that were discussed at the meeting. Christina J. Cook has been appointed to the board here today, but she also was appointed to the governance committee at that meeting. Interesting comments from Christina regarding her experience in applying for and being appointed to the board. So more complicated. Yeah, so it's something that I think we need to keep our finger on the pulse, because I think it is something that I think the province is starting to do as well. Reconciliation was discussed. What was significant is there's an overview of First Nations and the documentary for region report that was provided to the committee, and I think it's part of the package in the report as well. But it's a good report. It tends to show how many First Nations there are in the region that have interest in the region, and where the reserves are that are attached to each of those First Nations. And then to some extent, it shows that the overlapping nature of their traditional areas of jurisdiction. And so it is a good report in the context of understanding the complexities when we talk about First Nations, that it isn't a simple element. There are all kinds of things that come into play when you talk about First Nations. Some are small, some are large, some are very well off, and others aren't very well off at all. And so it's not as homogeneous a group as municipality governments, where we all kind of fall under a common piece of legislation and have common areas of responsibility, and approach things from a common policy perspective. So I think it's a good report for everybody to sort of have a read, at least understand who falls under the category of those First Nations. We also talked about the legal cadet program, which has been successful in Vancouver and Surrey, being expanded into the Westminster. I understand that's starting, either has started or started shortly in Westminster. guess the interest of the program kind of ebbs and flows a bit depending on how much effort is put into recruiting and marketing the program. So it's the reports generally are positive in relation to the outcomes. The governance framework was discussed, and again, a copy of that is provided to the board in the package that was sent out for this meeting. If you look at that chart, it shows you some of the complexities in relation to how we're managed, how we're governed. And I think it's kind of indicative of the need for us to at least consider how to simplify it. And I think, so there are a number of committees and a number of boards, each board having an area of responsibility. But I think the overlap sometimes are really kind of slide. And so it's something that from my perspective, as we continue to pursue governance changes for the province, I think that chart is a good start. And so this is where we are. This is the problems we face. And these are the issues that we've experienced as a result of this complication of governance. We also discussed the CPG annual conference. Director of that and also Director of Commerce. So maybe I'll leave that. I think there's a
there's an item for that.
so I'll leave that for Director of Commerce to discuss. Board training was discussed. We talked specifically about the provincial initiative to develop a 2-module training program for directors. Some our board is already through that training, and 3 of us are scheduled to keep that training in November. So it looks like a good program, and from all reports, from what I'm hearing, it sounds like people are doing the right things to do that program. I guess you can take that as well. So, and then the committee has a standing item on our regular agenda, the special committee on review of the Police Act report for recommendations to come out of that. And at this point in time, province is still going through information gathering. I think there are some things that are on a list to undertake once that piece of information gathering is done. But we need, I think we need, as an update of that. So that's the best that I recall.
That's great. Great.
One update, if I may, just from governance since the time of that meeting with in regards to the Westminster legal program. Just due to circumstance, that'll be pushed into 2024 in terms of proceeding with that program.
All right, any questions for Brian or governance? All right. Adam, do you talk about Kenji?
Sure, happy to. So I know George sent out a really good email kind of detailing some of the stuff from the CAPG event in St. John's. A few things that were discussed that are very relevant. You do get sort of regional differences across the country, but things that are sort of important nationally. One thing that came up was training for boards, and there's a real disparity across the country. Some provinces really have their act together on providing proper training to boards on what their role is, and it's sticking to what their mandated responsibilities are. BC is actually doing very well with this new program. I know BC had a program a couple of years ago, but it's more this new one. So I think it is probably, in my estimation, what I've seen in other places, probably one of the leading edge programs, and a lot of other provinces are kind of playing catch up. Some provinces still are providing really significant training to board members, and they're just kind of thrown into the fray. You don't really know what your roles or responsibilities are. The other thing that came up, of course, is the age-old discussion about governance and oversight versus operations, and where you draw the lines, and different reports that have been written on that. Board's traditional role, looking at things like strategic planning, finance, policy approval, things like that. But also, where do we have to stick our nose into operations or not? And, the old nose in, hands out, that kind of thing, and don't get too much into operations, because that's the chief's job. But when you do have big strategic issues happening in communities, the board is informed of what's going on, and not left in the dark. EDI was very topical, but a lot of stuff happening in different services across the country, but really good work on EDI reviews of policies, training materials, HR policy, jail policies, things like that. So that's ongoing. Community partnerships, very topical. We talked about it here today. various partnerships going on in the RCMP and other police jurisdictions across the country. Calgary did a very good presentation on some of their partnerships. But there's so many good examples across Canada that we draw from. Some really well-established programs as well as new ones. The current executive director of the CAPG, Jennifer Malloy, is retiring, I think, close to the end of the year. She's been there for many years, so they will be filling up the new EDs, so there will be a bit of change over there on the staff side. But CAPG, with the current executive, they're really looking to turn it into a center of excellence for police boards across the country and have it be a place where you can turn to for things like policy development or good ideas happening in board governance, and you really want to promote that. So I think it is good. I know that we're involved at the provincial level, but we continue to be involved at the national level as well, because transit police, I think, is a good voice. There are some things happening here, but you always come away with some good ideas and things happening in other areas. Another thing that was very topical was body worn cameras. So the RCMP, Toronto, Calgary, Delta, Vancouver, there's a number of cities across the country that are implementing body worn cameras that are different stages. Of course, it's been operational in the United States for 10, 12 years, so it's a lot of experience to go up and down there. But now as Canada is becoming more mature in this space, I think for in our own example here at Transit Police, as we move towards that, at some point there will be some good examples in the Canadian context with our own information and privacy laws and council and the differences we'll have in the United States. Some good examples both provincially and nationally. So I'll leave my comments there, but happy to take any questions.
Just, when I was talking to Greg about his experience at the CEPG conference, one of the things he raised was the issue of having, I don't know what to call it, chief board policy that talks about the relationship between the chief of police and the board. And I think he had referred to Paul as an example of having a policy that articulates sort of the rules of engagement, I guess, to be the way to describe it. But it sounded like a good discussion, because I think the rules that we have in place, and the rules are probably the wrong word, the guidelines that we have in place are kind of spread across several policies, and a lot of it is just common sense, I guess, but to actually articulate it so that there are issues that are going to come up, that there's a basis